Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to the regular scheduled meeting. This meeting will now come to order. This is the Land Use and Transportation Committee. I'm Supervisor Malia Cohen, Chair of this committee. Joining us shortly will be Supervisor and Vice Chair of this committee. Oh, there's Supervisor Scott Wiener joining us now. And to my left is Supervisor Kim. I would also like to acknowledge our clerk, Ms. Elisa Samara, and thank Jim Smith and Leo DeAssis from SFGov TV for broadcasting this meeting. Madam Clerk, do you have any announcements for us today?
Yes, please make sure to silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Completed speaker cards and copies of any documents to be included as part of the file should be submitted to the clerk. Items acted upon today will appear on the December 1st Board of Supervisors agenda unless otherwise stated.
All right, thank you so much. Can you call item number 1?
Item number 1 is an ordinance amending the administrative code to remove prohibition on the advertising of sugar-sweetened beverages on city property.
Thank you. Colleagues, thanks for hearing this item today. As you know, in June, the board unanimously passed legislation that would prohibit advertising of sugary-sweetened beverages on city property, along with 2 other accompanying pieces of legislation concerning sugary beverages, including requiring warning labels on sugar-sweetened beverage advertisement, and also limiting city spending on sugary beverages. So a week after the passing of this law, the Supreme Court ruled in a case called Reed versus Town of Gilbert, Arizona, regarding the First Amendment. It's led the city attorney to reevaluate the legal issues that were raised by the sugary beverage advertising ban ordinance. So it's for this reason that I've introduced legislation to repeal the ban. We will continue to enact the warning label and the spending legislation. Those 2 pieces will continue to move forward. While needless to say, this is a disappointing situation, but I just want to assure those folks that are on the ground and advocating with us on the ban for sugary beverages that we can't let this legal battle and the First Amendment hurdle define our fight against the big soda. So I just wanted to assure everyone that we are committed to a long uphill fight against this industry, and we will continue to craft thoughtful policies aimed to protect the health of San Franciscans. Supervisor Wiener, I think you have a few remarks that you'd like to say.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your continued leadership in trying to move us in a good direction on public health in terms of reducing the consumption of sugary drinks. Soda and sugary drinks are helping to fuel the explosion of type 2 diabetes in our country, including among children, and particularly in low-income communities and communities of color. We're trending towards 40% of Americans having type 2 diabetes, which is a disaster for our healthcare system, and we have to take strong steps to reduce consumption of these drinks, just as we've done around cigarettes. And Madam Chair, it was a pleasure to work with you on the soda tax, where we got 56% of the vote, even though $10 million was spent by the soda industry against us. Unfortunately, in this situation, we had a change in the law that was not favorable. The Supreme Court has fetishized the First Amendment when it comes to commercial speech. But be that as it may, the law is what it is, and I do want to just stress that we continue to move forward aggressively with our legislation, the first of its kind in the country, also passed unanimously by the board earlier this year, to require health warnings on advertisements for sugary drinks. The soda industry, with its deep pockets, of course, has also sued San Francisco over that law. We feel very good that we'll be able to defend it in court, and we will be defending it aggressively, and I look forward to those health warnings going up on advertisements, reminding people and educating people that these drinks make people sick. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that vote of confidence, Supervisor Wiener. And so, folks, why don't we go ahead and open up to public comment on this item? If there's any members of the public that'd like to speak on any of these items, just want to remind you that you have 2 minutes. You'll hear a soft bell chime, and that will indicate that you have 30 seconds remaining on your 2-minute allotment. So public comment is open for item number 1. And seeing no public comment is closed for item 1. Thank you. Thank you very much. Colleagues, could I have a motion to send this item forward to the full board with a positive recommendation? Thank you very much. Recognized by Supervisor Kim. Without objection, this motion passes with a positive recommendation. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, could you please call item number 2?
Item number 2 is an ordinance amending the planning code and zoning map to rezone properties facing Ocean Avenue from residential districts to the Ocean Avenue Neighborhood Commercial Transit District.
All right, thank you very much. I believe we have Diego Sanchez here with us from the Planning Department. He's going to be presenting on this item.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Diego Sanchez with the San Francisco Planning Department. Supervisors, on June 18, 2015, the Planning Commission considered the ordinance proposing to rezone properties facing Ocean Avenue from Phelan Avenue and Houth Street from the RH2 and RM1 zoning districts to the Ocean Avenue NCT district. After taking public comment, which was in favor of this ordinance, the Planning Commission deliberated and considered the department's favorable recommendation. For the reasons the department favorably recommended this ordinance to the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission voted in favor of this ordinance. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that brief presentation. Now, if only Planning Department could always do a brief presentation, we'd be in good shape. All right, let's see. Is there a representative from Supervisor Yee's office? Is Jen Lowe here? All right, Jen, why don't you come on up?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Supervisors. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Yee, and we hope that we can count on your support for this legislation. We're often talking about how we can support small businesses, and here we have a very promising commercial corridor that is Ocean Avenue. So this is a really innovative way to encourage more small businesses without having to raise height limits. So we really hope we can count on your support. This also fits in the general goals of the Balboa Park Station Area Plan to further strengthen the Ocean Avenue Commercial District and to allow for the diversity of mixed uses in the area. So it fits with the plan. We have general support from the public and from the supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your remarks. At this time, seeing that there's no colleagues that'd like to speak on this item, why don't we go ahead and open up public comment? Please, sir, come on up. Public comment is open. If there's anyone else that'd like to speak, please follow this gentleman.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Dan Weaver. I'm speaking here today as the Executive Director of the Ocean Avenue Community Benefits District, otherwise known as the Ocean Avenue Association. We developed this idea together with Tom Radulovich because we've noticed that in the CBD corridor, the most number of pedestrians, that is the ones going to and from City College down to the BART station, have no retail services along the street. So this seems like a logical way to encourage that without calling for major rezoning. And everyone I've heard from in the neighborhood supports it. The CBD board supports it unanimously. What they said about it is this is something people can do, but they don't have to do. So unless there's questions, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other members of the public that'd like to speak at this time? Okay, seeing no, public comment is closed. And colleagues, is there a motion on this item?
Move forward with a positive recommendation.
All right, there's a motion made to move forward with a positive recommendation, and without objection, this motion passes. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call item 3?
Item number 3 is an ordinance amending the planning code to modify the measurement methodology for rooftop appurtenances and create a process to authorize certain types of infill floor area in existing structures in a C3 zoning district which exceed the current height limit.
All right, thank you. So, colleagues, this item was continued by the committee a few weeks ago, and I believe we have Aaron Starr from the Planning Department to present on this item. No pressure, Aaron, but Diego did his in a short period of time. I don't know if you could do that, but it would be appreciated if you could.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Aaron Starr, Manager of Legislative Affairs for the Planning Department. The proposed ordinance was heard by the Planning Commission on July 23rd of this year, and the Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval with modifications. The proposed modification was to require the zoning administrator to review any appurtenance or infill as described in this ordinance. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wow. That was good. Very good. Proud of you, Mr. Starr. Supervisor Kim, is there anything that you'd like to say
I will be making a motion to continue after public comment.
All right, thank you. And just for the record, for the folks that will be commenting, we are going to continue this item until December 14th. So let's go ahead and open up to public comment. If anyone is here in the chamber that would like to speak on item number 3, please do so at the podium. Okay, seeing no public comment is closed at this time. Is there a motion on this item?
So I'd like to make a motion to continue this item, to Monday, December 14th.
Excellent, thank you. And this motion passes without objection. Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please call item number 4?
Item number 4 is a hearing on an expansion of a staffed pit stop public toilet program citywide, including activation and maintenance of existing city public toilet facilities in the public realm.
Great. I can't wait to hear about this pit stop. Supervisor Kim is the sponsor of this.
Thank you. And I'm very excited for this program to expand throughout the city and to your district as well. So I've called today's hearing to ask the city to consider expanding our very successful Tenderloin and Soma Pit Stop program, which is a public toilet program citywide, to additional locations. Every neighborhood should have access to clean and safe public toilets. And for that reason, I've asked the Controller's Office, who's worked very closely with our office, and I want to thank and acknowledge the team under Ben Rosenfield, to study our data, our complaints, and study a range of options to expand into a citywide public toilet program that would expand upon the successful TL and Soma Pit Stop, which our office piloted with Public Works in the summer of 2014. The critical component, of course, of what made this pilot incredibly successful is the regular maintenance only possible with staffing. When I first came into office, I heard over and over again from our residents throughout the city, but in particular in the Tenderloin, that we need more clean, safe restroom options, and that the current public restroom options often are small businesses or even the J.C. Deco bathrooms are not a good solution. And in fact, the J.C. Deco bathrooms have become magnets for dangerous or criminal activities, and so families and residents do not feel safe utilizing them. There's a clear demand for these facilities across San Francisco. On average, every day, almost 100 people use our 3 pit stops in the Tenderloin. In July alone, the 3 pit stops in District 6 were used over 4,500 times. And the results speak for themselves. The city has saved over 2,400 gallons of water just because we've had a reduction in steam cleaning requests in the neighborhood by 50%. And I just want to repeat that. We've had a reduction in steam cleaning requests in the Tenderloin by 50%. These facilities have made our streets cleaner, with over 120 bags of garbage collected at these 3 sites, a secure needle drop box to also aid in the collection and proper disposal of needles. I want to thank my colleagues for unanimously approving my budget request to make the pit stop permanent in January of last year. With your support and the support of the city family, the pit stop has expanded to the south of Market and 2 in Mid-Market and Mission and 16th Street. I also want to recognize and thank Public Works, who worked with our office between 2012 and 2014 to come up with this creative program. We knew that simply putting public toilets out on the streets alone would not address the issue. Many of our residents who may not have access to clean and safe bathrooms, or even our neighbors that live on our streets, need a place to go where there is toilet paper, of course, access to a sink and hand wash, so they can go in a place with dignity. No one wants to go to the bathroom on the streets. That is a choice that is made reluctantly by many people, and being able to access this throughout all of our neighborhoods will help keep our streets cleaner. Also, for our residents, it's absolutely unacceptable that they should have to regularly step over feces and urine when the city can provide a solution to that. I want to point out that this is also not a need or a problem unique to the homeless population of San Francisco. It really is an issue that impacts all of us. The use of a public restroom is a basic human necessity, and we found that now with our new pit stop at UN Plaza, that families with children use them. Farmers and our vendors and shoppers at the heart of the city farmers market, right in our own backyard, are able to use them. Visitors, workers, and residents. We all deserve and need well-maintained maintain clean and safe public restrooms. In fact, I've used them when I'm in the neighborhood as well. We can fully activate and leverage existing facilities and resources to help make this happen, and I'm looking forward to the hearing and the discussion today of all the possibilities. I also want to recognize again the Controller's Office, Public Works, and also Rec and Park for the time that they have spent investing in studying this issue. And thank you to the many residents of the city who have also lent their support to the pit stops, including many of you who have come out today to speak on this issue. So we will be hearing first from Public Works and then the Controller's Office to present their analysis and recommendation. I see our Director, Mohammed Nuru. Thank you so much for being here. I know that you work 24/7 hours, and I really appreciate all of your thinking around making the pit stops such a tremendously successful program in our district.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. I'm going to acknowledge Supervisor Wiener before we get started.
Thank you. Just quickly before the Director starts, thank you to Supervisor Kim for calling this hearing and for your work on the Pit Stop program. I will say that it is, I found it to also be very successful, and as Mr. Newer will attest, we have had a long time problem with one of the J.C. Decode toilets, the one in front of the Market Street Safeway at Market and Buchanan. It was just horrible, and a lot of people, myself included, had talked about how to move it elsewhere because it was completely failing in terms of people living in there, people shooting up in there, being used for pretty much everything except for actually the call of nature. And I want to thank DPW for including this restroom in the Pit Stop program. It is now staffed, and when it's not staffed, it is closed for those specific hours. And since it was taken into the Pit Stop program, I have not had a single complaint about that toilet. I've noticed a difference, not just the toilet itself, but the surrounding area. And I think it shows what happens when you actually have this kind of proactive approach to making sure that everyone in our city has access to restrooms, but that we do it in a very thoughtful and managed way. So I want to thank you for bringing that particular toilet into the program.
All right. I am waiting to hear this presentation only because I'm very interested in what Supervisor Kim has done in her district and considering rolling it out and expanding it in our neighborhoods in the Southeast. So with that said, Director Nuru, it's all yours.
Okay, good afternoon, Supervisors, and thank you, Supervisor Kim, for calling the hearing. As Supervisor Kim said, the concept was born a little over a year ago when we were having our budget meetings and we were looking for a solution to the concerns around people who were defecating on our streets, but also that year was the first year that we really started to talk about drought and how we could look for ways to reduce water. And as a result, the Pit Stop program was conceived at the Public Works Department. And the program is really a very straightforward program. It provides bathrooms to the public, and the bathrooms, the locations were selected based on a little bit of some data that we had collected in the Tenderloin, and the first 3 locations were selected. And as you will hear from the presentation, we have 9 locations now, and we have a few more in the works. The bathrooms are pretty much, as you heard, what makes the difference is the supervision, is actually having someone who is there at these locations. And at every one of these locations that we have test piloted, we have actually seen an increase, and we'll show you data in the number of users. In some places as high as 50% or even more. The bathrooms are created to be a safe place for someone to be able to use the bathroom, but as part of the program, we also provide an area where people can discard of their needles, and also an area where people can pick up doggy bags to clean up after their pets. So they all come together. So the actual bathroom itself, a needle disposal, and a place where you can pick up bags for your doggy is what defines what we call a pit stop. The bathrooms also have to be very clean. So the pilot that we are using actually provides fresh air, make sure the toilets are clean, make sure they're soap to wash your hands, and everything you would expect in a bathroom. The next slide you will see shows our steam cleaning request in the city, citywide. You can see the concentrations of where the department needs to respond to steam cleaning. And as you can see, the Tenderloin is very, very dark. The Mission, Soma, the Castro, some parts of Haight Street, North Beach, and then just scattered all throughout the city. But the concentrations, as you can see, are mainly in the mid-market area and are going towards Mission. A little bit about the program itself. The program itself, as you can see, does a number of things. Of most importance, obviously, when people need to go, they have a place to go. But it is also a job training program, and so the partnership is a lot of the people who manage these bathrooms are in training and getting ready for a job. The bathroom also provides the areas where people can get rid of things, but by having the bathroom staffed, when people come along with the pet or a shopping cart or something, staff there will assist, so they'll keep an eye on it while they use our facilities. Those are some of the benefits of the program. Where we are now, as I said, we are in 9 locations, and those locations, in addition to data, there are some locations that we were actually just piloting and just seeing what a difference it would make. And so you can see there's a concentration down in the south of Market, but we also have around 16th and Mission, and then we have the 2020 Market Street location.
Excuse me, Director Nuyu, I have a question about the locations.
Yes.
How did you come to select the locations for the current pit stops, and then how did you come to select the potential future locations?
So when we started the program, we looked at our data on areas that we receive a large number of calls for steam cleaning. And those areas were primarily in the Tenderloin. We then went out and did some field surveys for a couple of months, just collecting data to look for what would be the most appropriate locations. And one of the key areas that we found out in our studies is that some of these areas where soup kitchens are located were definitely high concentrated areas, and there was probably not enough service. So the pilot showed an indication that those were some prime areas, in addition to a few other areas that we looked at just based on the data. And so the first 3 were rolled out in the Tenderloin, and 2 of them close to programs that provide meals, and one of them just a program that a lot of people like to hang out at.
The pit stops that are in the Tenderloin, are they portables, or are they staffed, or are they non-staffed?
All pit stops are staffed. That is the concept, that the bathrooms need to be staffed. And our program comprises of 2 types of toilets. One of them, and you will hear from, is the JCDecaux, which are toilets that have been around for many years, and those are permanent. And then the mobile ones, and the mobile ones can move. And so mostly in the Tenderloin, the ones that we are working on now are mobile toilets. Yeah.
Thank you.
The next graph actually shows you some data before we started the pit stop. You can, if you see the blue were requests for steaming, and as we implemented the pit stop over the last year and a few months, you can see the huge reduction in the request for steam cleaning. And so in those areas where traditionally using our data where we have had to respond to calls are areas that we targeted. And in those areas, we have actually seen a reduction in the request for service, but also in some of the cleanliness of those areas too. Citywide, we're still struggling citywide. As you can see, citywide, the data is fluctuating. But we don't have this program all over the city, and so we just wanted to share that data with you, just so you can see. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I think one of the areas that we did want to share some detail with you is the mission, the program in the mission. The program in the mission has a combination of both a JCDecaux and a pit stop. And the pit stop is more located closer to 16th and Cap, and then the JCDecaux is on the BART Plaza. But from just when we started the pit stop program at 16th and Cap Street area, we have seen the use increase by as much as 51%. And on the JCDecaux toilet that is on the plaza, we have seen the increase as high as 92%. And so that's a 92% meaning doubling or going even above double the number of flushes that have been used in the JCDecaux. So what that tells us is, and we have found this in, I think, all locations, with having staff at the location and making sure that it's clean and available for when people want to use them, that actually more people are using them, and the number of flushes are increasing because of more use. The next slide just shows citywide where we have the various types of toilets. The greens are the JCDecaux, the ones with the blue are pit stops, and the ones with the darker blue are pit stops that are staffed. And so right now we currently have 9 locations in the city. Those locations are, you can go to the next slide if you want. Yeah, we have 9 locations. The pit stops, mostly the hours of operations, 5 days a week and 6 hours a day, and we have 5 locations for those, 3 of them in the Tenderloin, the one at 16th and Mission, and then the other one down on 6th Street. The JCDecaux that we're staffing are in 4 locations, and those are staffed for about 12 hours a day. 2 of them out here, one at the corner of Larkin and Grove, and the other one on the corner of 7th and Market. And then we have the one that Supervisor Wiener talked about at 2020 Market Street across from the new Whole Food. And then the 4th one is located in the Mission on the BART Plaza. And with all of them, we have seen huge increases in the number of flushes. In fact, the one at Civic Center and UN Plaza are going almost to triple the number of uses just by counting the number of flushes. And we have also seen an increase, a lot of calls to our agency for people who really appreciate having the bathrooms there. Lots of children are using them. Lots of vendors around the city are using them. And so, we strongly believe in staffing. To the cost for staffing these 9 toilets for the pit stop, we're a little over $700,000 for the 5 locations, and the JCDecaux, which are already permanently there, the cost is $235,000 or so that is being budgeted this year. In the works, we're looking at a few more locations. We're looking up at the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. So we were funded in the budget, and we're working with Recreation and Parks Department to figure out where that location would be. There is a JCDecaux currently there, so our plan is to staff the JCDecaux, but we might also need to bring a pit stop somewhere along Haight Street, maybe a little bit towards the middle. So we're working those details out, but that is also funded here. And then in District 9, we're working with Supervisor Campos, who has also expressed interest and has used some funding that he has to explore a location in the Mission. The future of the program, obviously, we are just in our pilot phase, but one of the, I think, key challenges that we have is to begin to make sure that these bathrooms are more ADA accessible, and so we are starting the process of going into a design phase of what types of ramps can work, and the challenges there are mostly with the mobile pit stops because we have to move them from place to place, and what type of amenities will go with them. We're also looking at the inside the bathrooms themselves, additional amenities that we can add in there to make them a more comfortable place for everyone. I'll just leave it with a slide from one of the quotes from someone who has recently interviewed with a reporter who says the pit stop it's private, it's clean, it has a sink, it has soap, it has seat covers, it has paper towels, it has a light. It's wonderful. It's a blessing. It's the way I was raised. So, thank you.
Thank you. I love that comment, too. It's a very important human element to add to the presentation. I do want to talk a little bit about the cost of the pit stop. Yep. It seems to be fairly expensive to run and to operate. The portable pit stop funding, is this number the $700,000 figure, is that to manage the pit stops that we already have in existence?
That's to manage the five that you have, but that also includes the cleaning, mm-hmm. and also includes the transporting every day out to the various sites and bringing them back. So those are mobile toilets, and they're brought out for peak time use, and then they're brought back on a schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they go to the same location every time?
They go to the same
or
location.
Around the area?
They go normally around the same location.
And so is there, going back to one of your previous slides about potential future requests, have you identified money in the budget to absorb the new potential locations for more pit stops?
So in this budget that was just passed, that was the first new addition of funding, and so previously we had 3 locations. We got one halfway through the budget, and now we have 9 locations that we're piloting. We're going to be adding 2 more or so to that 9, so we'll be up to 11. And then as we collect data and as we have a whole request for locations, we study those locations. And so the future of public bathrooms being staffed is really being looked at very, very closely. We have a great opportunity right now with our public toilet contract, which is out on the street, and we're soliciting vendors to apply for the contract. That contract will look at the existing toilets and possibly even add new toilets around the city. And so our staff are using data to locate where those potential areas are, but we're also studying the existing toilets because those toilets have not been staffed in the past, and so trying to staff those locations to see what types of feedback we'll get. But I can tell you just from initial studies that we've done and initial feedback, they made an enormous amount of change and an enormous amount of use.
Let me ask a question. I know you know the Bayview community fairly well, and I noticed that on the list of potential sites there was nothing along the 3rd Street corridor. I wanted to get your opinion. Is that an oversight, or is the demand just not quite where it needs to be?
I think with every situation and with every request for where these are located will come some background work. And so initially, when we were looking at at all parts of the city, including Bayview. We did look at the 3rd and Palu area as a potential location, but I also felt like we have some community groups or amenities in the area. We have the Jolie Rec Center, we have the Bayview Opera House.
Yes.
We have quite a number of nonprofits in the area, and so we have not yet received a request asking for it, but looking at that could be a potential location for Bayview.
I appreciate that. Usually, although those are facilities, the homeless people are discouraged from being able to use those facilities, even if they are rec and park facilities and open. So I could see that there may be there could be a growing demand for these types of pit stops along the corridor. You yourself know we've got numerous requests for a toilet in Mindale Plaza.
Again, it's the staffing.
Staffing.
You want, when one person leaves, that they leave it in good condition, and if not, then we have staff to make sure that they're not abused, and that that when you go in there, you really have a good experience.
All right, thank you so much, Supervisor Kim.
I just want to comment on the human aspect of the pit stop. Just also mention that I've talked to countless individuals that use it, and I think one of the things that actually struck me was another woman who talked about how she goes to the same pit stop every afternoon, almost as a ritual, and because it's the one time during the day when she gets to be by herself, and that she even spends the 2 minutes meditating in the pit stop. And I feel like there are actually countless outcomes that I never expected from this program that are far beyond just the basic necessity of being able to have access to a clean and safe bathroom, which everyone should be able to have access to. But I really do want to commend Director Nuru again. When I had brought up this issue of expanding access to clean and safe bathrooms in the Tenderloin, it was an issue that he had long been thinking about. And if it wasn't for your creative energy in conceptualizing how this would occur, because we came up with so many different ideas that we didn't think would work in the neighborhood, that would end up very similarly to what we see with the J.C. Deco bathrooms prior, which was that they were underutilized, that people didn't consider them safe, that they were a magnet for dangerous activities. We wouldn't have this program today. And I think, hopefully we can demonstrate that not only are there these other outcomes, but that we're also saving money through this program. And I just am really excited to see it go citywide, because I think every neighborhood should have this program. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Director Nuru.
Thank you.
I have 5 public comment cards in my hand. I will call.
Oh, I'm sorry. We also have the Controller's Office doing. My apologies. The Controller's Office is also here to do a presentation. We have Peg Stevenson, and I know that Claire Phillips and Joe Lapka also worked on the data as well. And this is just a citywide analysis from the Controller's Office, kind of culling through all of the data.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome back, Ms. Stevenson.
Hi, thank you. I'm Peg Stevenson. I'm the head of the Performance and Technical Assistance Group in the Controller's Office. I'm going to turn it straight over to Claire Phillips and Joe Lapka. We were asked to kind of expand the analysis a little bit, bring in some other data sources, and if you want to take a broader look at what the data tells you about where you should site toilets in the city, that's what this is designed to get you toward. So if you bear with us just as I walk you through the analysis, I think you'll find it interesting.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'm Claire Phillips with the Controller's Office, and I'm here with my colleague Joe Lapka, and we are going to present a geospatial analysis on the accessibility of public toilets. So what we're going to cover here is we are going to provide a geospatial representation of where public toilets currently are located and where toilets can be added to provide more access, especially in higher demand areas. We are going to provide recommendations for further pit stop program analysis and expansion, and provide a cost comparison for public toilet resources and staffing. I'm going to move through this quickly because this is what Public Works has just presented, but the takeaway here is that there are a total of 9 locations in the pit stop program currently, and they're all staffed. So the types of current public toilets that we included in this analysis are permanent locations. So that includes rec centers, parks, libraries, health centers, and hospitals, as well as parking garages and police and fire stations. Also the portable locations, those are the pit stop program, the 5 locations, and then future locations to be determined, as well as the semi-permanent, which are the JC Deco locations. There's 25 JC Decos throughout the city, and 5 of them are currently staffed and part of the pit stop program, and the 20 that are unstaffed are the ones that are open 24/7. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe to walk through the geospatial analysis.
Thank you, Clara. Good afternoon, supervisors. Jumping right into the analysis, Figure 1A shown on the screen shows the location of 274 public restrooms that are maintained by city departments. Half of those are at parks and facilities maintained by the Recreation and Parks Department. Police and fire stations together make up about another 20%. DPW and the library each have between 10 and 11%, and the rest are made up of DPH's health clinics and hospitals, MTA's parking garages, and a variety of other city buildings. We don't have complete data on the hours of all of these locations, but in general, we know, for example, that park facilities close at dusk and pit stop locations and libraries close by 9 p.m. So we can easily identify the facilities that are open overnight. And as you can see, there are a number of them fall from the map. In particular, the number drops from 274 down to 78. So there's quite a difference between daytime and nighttime availability, but I should note that from here on out, our analysis is focused on daytime hours, and we don't account for variability in the hours, including the fact that libraries have different hours on different days, for example. I should also note that we don't know how many people are aware that you can request to use the bathroom at police and fire stations, and we don't know how comfortable many people are doing that. So to provide for a more conservative assessment of the situation, we have excluded those locations from the remainder of the analysis as well. We have anecdotal data suggesting that 0.2 of a mile isn't a reasonable expectation for the distance someone will walk to use a public restroom. So here in Figure 2, we've drawn a 0.2 mile buffer around all of the restroom locations to give you a sense of the coverage in the city. However, this does not account for the amount of demand for restrooms, so that is what we examine in the next slide shown here. While homeless people are not the only users of these facilities, we wanted to understand how accessible restrooms in the city are to the homeless population, and that is what you see represented here in the shading on this map. Here we use the location of the restrooms in combination with the 2015 homeless census data to calculate a supply and demand ratio for each of the city's census block groups. Darker shaded areas have lower accessibility, and lighter areas have higher accessibility. And then over that, we have layered all of the restroom locations. So to help you understand what's going on here, if you focus for a moment on the Sunset neighborhood, kind of the lower portion, you'll see a brightly shaded area with a number of restrooms. So here we have a number of restrooms, but according to the census data, a relatively low demand. And so on our index, we have a higher accessibility level. Right above that, you can see a darker shaded area with the lower accessibility. That's primarily because there are no restrooms located to that condition, but we also know from the data that there's also low demand in that area as well. In contrast, if we look at the Tenderloin area, you can see that there are a number of restrooms there, but it's still shaded as lower accessibility because there's more people, significantly more people in that area. So to focus our attention on the areas that need it the most, okay, it's showing up on the screen. We took out all of the areas with either a high accessibility or a low demand, and what's left is shown here in Figure 5. So this is still a pretty big area, and to further focus our attention, we analyzed 311 data to determine where there are hot spots for requests for street cleaning due to human waste and urine, and that is shown here on the map on the upper left. We did the same thing with crime data, and the idea here is that people may be more likely to use restrooms that already exist if they feel more comfortable doing so or more safer doing so. So what we've done here in the figure on the right then is to start with 311 hotspots as the primary factor in determining where additional pit stop locations could be placed. And then we're indicating in purple where the crime hotspots overlap with the 311 data, as it could help to identify potential areas for expanded staffing. So figure 7A brings all of this information together, and then figure 7B sort of zooms in a primary area of interest in the northeast quadrant of the city. And we've identified here 6 different areas where we feel the data suggests that the program could be expanded. The first one is in the vicinity of Market Street between New Montgomery and Fremont. We're not necessarily suggesting that portable toilets be placed at this location, but nevertheless, the data do suggest that there's an unidentified need here that could perhaps be addressed in a different way. The second one labeled on the map is in the vicinity of 3rd Street and Bryant. This is near the I-80 overpass that is in this area, and we know from HSA data that there are often homeless encampments in this area. The third one is in the vicinity of 6th Street and Bryant. This is near the Hall of Justice, and it illustrates the effect that removing the police stations from our analysis has on the results. If we factor in that the Hall of Justice is there, then that may influence the outcome. The fourth one is a larger area near 9th and Folsom. The fifth area is in the vicinity of 13th and Folsom Street. Again, there's an overpass here where encampments often are. There's also a skate park in this area that does not have a restroom. And then finally, the sixth area is in the vicinity of 9th and Brannan. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Claire to discuss our findings and recommendations.
So there were 2 main findings that came out of this analysis. The first is that there are a number of daytime restrooms available throughout the city, and a few locations that have a higher demand and a limited number of locations that would need additional toilets, and Joe just ran through those additional locations. Our second main finding is that there's significantly less availability citywide for an accessible toilet between 9 o'clock at night and 9 o'clock in the morning. The pit stop locations and the libraries close by 9 o'clock in the evening, and the recreation and park facilities, although they differ on schedule, for the most part they are from dawn until dusk. So based on these findings, we have a number of recommendations. The first is to continue this data-driven approach to develop new pit stop locations and also staff more locations, and to evaluate opportunities to expand public restroom hours and staffing, and then to evaluate the staffing pilots and the restroom use. So there are a number of public toilet resources that are out there and can be beneficial. They have different benefits. To start, the porta potty rentals. The city is familiar with porta potty rentals. They're short-term and long-term. They're flexible. They can be moved to different locations, and the cost is relatively low. These costs do not include calls for service. This is just a unit cost that you'll see here on this slide. There's also a portable personal toilet. Typically, you may see those in an outdoor store. They can be used for camping. They're for an individual. They can be carried around with someone. They fold up into a briefcase. So they're available anytime someone needs one, and they can be individual to that person.
Where are they available? How do I get one? Portable personal toilet.
So you can find them at REI. There are a number of online stores that can provide them.
Oh, you threw me because it says, the title of the slide says other public toilet resources, so I thought it was a public resources, but it's actually
no,
not.
These would, right, sorry, these would be options. These are the toilet options for public resources. So porta potties in addition to a personal public toilet. There are cost considerations to include in the personal public toilet. The bags need to be replenished. And then the third one is another resource for a public toilet, which is AirPnP or Toilet Finder applications, where you can actually search and see what's within your area. There can be a variety of businesses that will advertise their toilets. They're anywhere from $0 to $5. Some offer toilets free of charge and just say, if you're available and you're in this area, you can come in and use our toilet. Others from individuals will charge anywhere from $1 to $5 I've seen to use a toilet per use. Another option is the pea planter. The pea planters are also available anytime. They're safe. They're a bit more transparent. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide. And also the Portland Loo, which I'll go into a little bit more. And those are similar to the JC Decaux, designed for urban areas. So to get a little bit more into the pea planter, it's self-contained. They're out in the open. They're a bit more transparent. You'll see in the picture here there's some plastic, and then there's also a planter that provides transparency and dignity to use a restroom in a public space.
So do we have any of these in San Francisco?
We do not currently.
Where are these available? Who?
Oakland did a pilot. It's a startup. They're starting to work with other agencies.
Did you evaluate their pilot program?
I believe Public Works looked into this a little bit. They may be able to speak a little bit more to what they found. In speaking with them, they did mention that when they looked into the pea planter at first, that they're really only used for urine. They're not used for all types of public waste. So this may be a solution that's specific to areas that have issues with urine. But we can look more into other locations that have used these and that have piloted these to see what their outcomes have been. So we're happy to look into that more.
Okay.
So the benefits of the pea planter are the reuse of gray water, and the plants actually reuse the water, and it's treated, and so there aren't issues with odor, and that they're available 24/7. The Portland Loo, this was designed in Portland. Not only the city of Portland, but also San Diego just started to use a few of these. They're designed to be durable. You can see by the picture here that they're grates, so they're not as enclosed as the JC Decaux. You can actually see above and below, and so they're a bit more transparent, which lends itself to that safety aspect of a public toilet. Also, there's no sink inside. The spigot on the outside is where people can wash their hands, and that was thought of as better for an urban environment, since there's no way to tell if sinks have been left on inside public toilets, and it's just more transparent to have something on the outside. That way, if somebody does leave it on, that it can be seen and it can be turned off, or it's also another water source if somebody needs water outside of a public restroom. They're environmentally friendly. They use solar and AC power, LED lighting, and they're low flush. They do require a sewer connection, and so that would be something to consider when thinking about costs and locations. In 2012, Portland paid about $140,000 for their first loo, and then each subsequent unit was $60,000, and the maintenance fee for them was about $12,000 per unit, just to give an idea of the cost there. So as we've talked about today, there are many benefits of public toilets, environmental benefits, recycled water, cleaner streets, supporting the Public Works pee-resistant paint expansion efforts to have an area that's clean and safe for people to use as needed. Cost also being reduced for street cleanup and steam clean requests, and clean and safe facilities that are accessible to all. The benefits of staffing really goes to that clean and safe place, and also a jobs program with workforce development opportunities for low-income individuals. So staffing, so the 9 pit stop locations, as we mentioned, are all staffed. The portable toilets are staffed 8 hours a day, and the JC Decaux are staffed 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So Public Works prioritized the pit stop pilot locations based on proximity to soup kitchens. They did a walking survey of feces, also Public Works street cleaner feedback, those that are actually on the street, cleaning the street, and the 311 human waste requests. Public Works proposed a one-year pilot for staffing at a cost of $87,360 per location, and that pilot location is a church and market. And Public Works is also, as I mentioned, in the process of identifying other priority locations to expand the program. A few notes on budget. The individual portable locations that are part of the Pit Stop program, the cost estimate is at $101,600 per unit. And the staffing is the $87,360 per staffing attendant. In addition, another budget note is that a $60,000 add back from Supervisor Breed will be used to staff the J.C. Deco restroom at Stanyan and Waller. And this final slide gives an overall comparison between the different types of public toilet resources that we've talked about. You'll see here the difference between those that are available the day, those that are available in the evening. Again, the J.C. Decos that are unstaffed are 24/7, so those are available at night. The porta potties, the pea planter, and the Portland loo would also be designed to be 24 hours. And the portable toilets currently are just during the day. Part of the Pit Stop program is just during the day, closing by 9 o'clock at night. And so we have the estimated annual costs here. You'll see that the higher end of the costs are the pea planter and the Portland loo. And then for the staffing cost estimate, we're assuming expanded hours to 14 hours a day. That could be anywhere from 6 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, or 7 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. But assuming $20 per hour, a 14-hour day for an attendant, that cost would be $101,920. So we just wanted to show that if hours were going to be expanded, so that there is more availability between 9 o'clock at night and 9 o'clock in the morning for a 14-hour day. These are the cost estimates, and then it shows the total cost below. J.C. Deco costs, the estimated annual cost per unit. The city isn't paying anything right now, but the J.C. Deco contract will come up, I believe, at the end of next year. And so if there are these other options, you'll see that the costs are a little bit higher for the portables. Porta potties tend to be on the lower end, and then the pea planter and the Portland loo are on the higher end, between $250,000 and $315,000. So that concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, are there any questions for the staff presenter? Supervisor Kim?
No questions, but I just want to say how helpful it is to have the Controller's Office call through kind of multiple sources of data to understand what resources the city currently has that we can utilize without additional cost, and maybe even improve some of the access to some of those current resources, like our libraries and Rec and Park. It'd also be very interesting to look at our firehouses as well, but also to look at the data and where the gaps are. I thought that this was incredibly interesting. I do want to ensure that we have a citywide expansion, but I want to make sure it's data-driven, that we're putting the resources where the needs are. And so this was a really nice study, and also to look at what all the different possibilities are and what other cities are examining as well, and the cost kind of benefit, or the cost analysis. So thank you so much for all of your work. And we do have one final quick presentation. Sarah Ballard is here from Rec and Park.
Okay.
Good afternoon, supervisors. We're mostly here to be available for questions, but did just want to point out a couple of different things for you as you move through considering an expansion of this program. As the Controller's Office mentioned, we received an ad back from Supervisor Breed's office to initially to staff a restroom at Haight and Stanyan in Golden Gate Park, and through consultation with the Department of Public Works and the lessons that they have learned through the Pit Stop pilot, actually shifted that to the J.C. Deco, which is about a half block further. So I think that's a good lesson for all of us, that not every single restroom is necessarily appropriate for staffing, given the location and some of the constraints associated with that. I did just want to also let you know that our excuse me, I'm fighting a cold, that Our restrooms there are sort of different categories of restrooms in our system. We have a total of 166 restrooms. 50 of those are standalone restrooms. So the type of restroom you see, say, in the Panhandle or Golden Gate Park, a single building. 33 of those are internal to our facilities, like the restroom Supervisor Cohen was referencing at Joe Lee Rec Center. So those are actually inside buildings that are staffed and are open much later than dusk. 68 of our restrooms are what we call external-facing restrooms. So they're associated with the building, but they also face the exterior of the park. So, for example, at Hamilton Rec Center, there are restrooms that serve both the interior of the building, but you can also access them from the playground. And then, because we are lucky enough to benefit from general obligation bonds that the voters so generously support, we do have 6 restrooms currently under construction. That's all. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and take public comment. I've got a few cards in my hand. I'm going to call up a few people. Edward De Palma, James Sword, Kevin McCracken, Carly Ledoux, Christian Kalinsky, and Polly Gregg. My apologies if I mispronounce the name. I can't read all the handwriting. Edward, are you Edward?
I am.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Good afternoon, Supervisors. Edward De Palma. I'm a proud resident of District 10. I live a couple blocks from Mendel Plaza, which I'm very happy to hear, Supervisor Cohen, that you mentioned, because I came down here specifically to tell you that I think that would be an excellent location for one of these portable toilets. I think a staffed toilet in that location would be a great help. I personally have witnessed people both urinating and defecating in and around that plaza on numerous occasions. There's a utility box right at the corner of Oakdale and 3rd that is pretty much a de facto public urinal. You can find a pool of urine sitting at the base of it most days. So I think this would go a long way to helping fix that situation, and I'd urge you to support it.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. What's interesting is, though, the data doesn't support what you and I know to be kind of our reality.
Well, I would take issue with some of the data. For example, the Bayview Opera House has been under construction for the last year and a half, and it's unclear as to when that is going to be completed. And as a resident of the neighborhood, I'm not even aware of terribly many publicly accessible restrooms in that vicinity. And like I said, you just need to walk through there and see how people behave in the real world. And I think we would agree that a pit stop would be very useful there.
Thank you. We'll keep our eyes open. James, Kevin, Charlie.
Supervisors, thank you. My name is James Sword. I'm the president of the Haight-Ashbury Neighborhood Council, and for more than a year now, we have been pushing for the pit stops in the Haight-Ashbury. Even though we're a little disappointed that they entered other neighborhoods before ours, we look forward to them being brought into our neighborhood. In addition to the gentleman's comments, I do want to point out that it looked like on the statistics, there were at least 2 restrooms in our neighborhood that were listed as available to the public that in fact were not. I believe the J.C. Deco, but also the one at Page and Stanyon. I can think of 3 locations off the top of my head that definitely need portable restrooms along the Haight corridor from Masonic to Stanyon. And the success in the Tenderloin, I think, should be brought into a neighborhood like the Haight, which unlike some of the other neighborhoods that seem to need high demand, we also have tens of thousands of visitors every day. We're a high tourist location. And as you know, tourism really helps run this city. So I would urge you to help move those into the Haight-Ashbury, because contrary to some of the stats, we really do need them. We have a lot of calls regarding feces and urine. I personally have made some of those calls, and I've seen people from all walks of life urinate along my street. And I've actually made a neighbor who lived a block away clean up some from in front of my driveway, who I witnessed doing it. So it's not just the homeless, it's not just the disenfranchised, but it's people coming out of the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning. I've witnessed people jumping out of cars at Haight and Ashbury and urinating, jumping back in the car and continuing on. So I think it crosses all economic values. It's something that needs to come to the Haight, and please bring the Tenderloin pit stops to the Haight-Ashbury. Thank you for this matter.
Thank you, Kevin, followed by Charlie, followed by Christian.
Thank you, supervisors. My name is Kevin McCracken. I'm a business owner in District 1 and a resident of District 1, business owner in District 6. One of the locations that was mentioned actually is right down the street from me, 6th and Bryant. I'm at between 6th and 5th on Folsom Street. And I can say honestly that we need more public restrooms. I experience it every day coming to work. I also have a 7-year-old daughter, and it's difficult even with a little girl asking to find a restroom in San Francisco. And so for me as a business owner, we have clients come every day. Our client list includes large companies like Airbnb and Dropbox, and we have constant problems with people urinating and defecating, not just in front of our building, but actually on our building at times. So I completely support, as a business owner, this to move forward to the Board of Supervisors in expanding this program, and I'd like to thank you for the time.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Carly LeDuc with To the Streets. We're a nonprofit that works with homeless youth in the Haight. And this issue of having access to clean public restrooms is just critical, like with just visible part of our programs is actually cleaning the streets and the amount of like feces and urines that our youth are having to clean up after. It's a major issue, and it's the number one issue that's brought up in the neighborhood council as well as in the Merchants Association when people are speaking about problems that our neighborhood is dealing with. And also the idea that there are public restrooms available, like the police station and the fire department. I, as a resident, didn't even realize that that is like a resource that's available, let alone, tourists or like the homeless, like aren't going to necessarily realize that that's something that's accessible. So I wouldn't even consider that a resource. And the need for just public, clean environment for our neighborhood and our community is really crucial. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Christian Klinsky, and I'm also with Taking It to the Streets, and I'm representing the Haight-Ashbury Merchants Association. First, I'm going to read a letter from the Haight-Ashbury Merchants Association. The Haight-Ashbury Merchants Association supports To the Streets to staff the public toilets of the Haight-Ashbury, whether those are the existing park toilets or a roving tender pit. There is a need for 24-hour public access for residents and visitors to use. The president's also going to send a letter to you guys regarding this as well. Also, on the fire department and the police stations, most of those bathrooms are out of order. Maybe not for general public use, but we've actually had kids that we work with go in and try to use a fire station bathroom, and they're denied access, saying that it's out of order. The downstairs, because the only bathrooms that are available to the public are the downstairs bathrooms, and it's always the ones that we've actually attempted to use are out of order. The ones upstairs are for the firefighters or the police. We've been in talking to DPW and Supervisor Breed about putting the pit stops in the Haight, and we have a workforce program that is designed to actually work with the kids, and we have a very successful program that we provide housing for services. They work and clean up the streets, and they're willing to man these toilets on a volunteer basis, and it is a working model that we can actually have work with the pit stops inside of the Haight-Ashbury. Thank you.
Thank you. Polly is next. James, I'm sorry. No, you were in line. Please. After this next speaker is Polly, James Tracy, Dwayne Sears, Avni Desai, Elihu Hernandez, and Ankh Sulrama.
Supervisors, thank you. My name is Chris Schulman, S-C-H-U-L-M-A-N. I didn't mean to cut. I thought we were done with the named people. I'm representing the Lower Polk Community Benefit District today. I'd like to thank Supervisor Kim for calling this hearing, along with Supervisor Wiener and Cohen for hanging out and listening to what everyone has to say. I think the department's had a great feedback. Lower Polk Community Benefit District has been working really close with La Voz Latina in the Tenderloin, working with Sergeant Macaulay Park. And we heard loud and clear that the J.C. Decaux restroom at Sergeant Macaulay Park is a big problem for that park. Safety, drug use, prostitution, it's an issue. And they said that the number one thing that they would do to improve the park would be to staff that restroom. So I'm very pleased that the Lower Polk Community Benefit District is able to make a commitment to staff that restroom next year. We're working with DPW and JCDecaux on the details. I think it's going to happen. So the Benefit District will staff that restroom next year. We're hoping to get data showing improvement to the safety, showing improvement, less defecation, urination in the neighborhood, and then we would really hope that we could work with the city long term to get that restroom staffed beyond 2017. So I'm very excited about this hearing. I thank you for taking the time. I thank the departments, and we look forward to continuing to work with DPW and Supervisor Kim and her staff.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Pauly. James.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is James Tracy. I'm the Director of Community Organizing and Resident Engagement for Community Housing Partnership. Community Housing Partnership is 100% in favor of expanding pit stops and any other options for people to urinate and defecate indoors with dignity. I think this is such a gigantic step forward in public policy. I can remember the days of Tony Hall and Chris Daly going at it in these chambers and thinking that if Sigmund Freud was alive, that he would have been very, very fascinated by the ways that we debated and obsessed on defecation and urination, when actually the solutions are really, really simple. You give people a pot to pee in. You give people the dignity of being able to do what every other housed human being does, and also echoing an earlier speaker's comments, it's not just about homeless people. It's not just about low-income people. I lived out in the Marina District for a short amount of time, and those frat kids have some problems with finding a toilet as well. And it's really exciting to see that we're moving away. At least part of San Francisco, part of the city is moving away from criminalization and ticketing and sending people down to 850 Bryant and actually coming out with some solutions that will work for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Dwayne Sears. I'm with CORE. I'm all for the public bathrooms because of dignity and health issues, and coming out of your place and seeing somebody urinate between two cars is not very pleasurable, so I'm all for it.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, Supervisors Kim, Cohen, and Wiener. My name is Avni Desai, and I am the Public Policy Manager at Community Housing Partnership and a resident of District 8. I actually live a half block away from one of the public toilets, and my observation has been that it is utilized, respected, and people are going there. It's clean. There's an attendant there, so people, I see it as a huge asset to where I live. And as a public health professional and a policy advocate, I'd like to just say that health is not a privilege, it's a right for everyone, and basic sanitation, our harm reduction methods are just crucial to public health and the health for all. So we're definitely in support of expanding this program. Thanks.
Next speaker, please. Elihu Hernandez.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Elihu Hernandez. I've been a resident of District 6 for several years, especially the Tenderloin, and I'm here to ask you to talk to your colleagues as well to support and expand the Pit Stop program. Unfortunately, there's only one problem I have with this program in existence. Unlike everybody else in this room, I have the exact same thing. My bladder does not go by a clock. The restrooms closing at 9 p.m. is a huge problematic problem for everyone in the city, especially those who are denied service at the shelter, who cannot get in, who are not able to stay at the other locations, the safe area locations. They need to use the restroom. Maybe even tourists or people who are drinking in the Haight or the Castro, they need to use the restroom. It's a lot sanitary and safety for the whole entire city if this program is expanded 24 hours a day, or at least the 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning at least. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Anoxul Rama, community organizer with Community Housing Partnership, and I also am in support of expanding the Pit Stop program citywide. But I also want to call attention to the workers who are manning those stops, and that maybe we need to consider that it's going to be extraordinarily rainy and cold, and they need to have some sort of shelter and a space to sit. I've seen them out there often, and they do really hard work cleaning up and maintaining those facilities. And I just want to call out their situation and not being able to sit or have shelter from the elements on the job. Thanks.
Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on item number 4? Please come up. We're going to close public comment soon. Oh, hi.
Jennifer Friedenbach, Coalition on Homelessness. Coalition on Homelessness is really supporting expanding the pit stops. And what a beautiful thing to talk about actual solutions to an issue. I mean, this is really wonderful. And I think there is nothing more dignified than being able to use the restroom in private. And it's just so important to human dignity. I just can't emphasize that enough. No one uses restrooms outdoors by choice. It's just not in human beings' nature to be public about that particular activity. And so I want to thank Supervisor Kim and the rest of the supervisors, and we really support this. Thanks.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Are there any other members of the public that'd like to speak on item 4? Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed at this time. Supervisor Kim, do you have any last-minute remarks? If not, we can move on.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out. It's not often that we launch a program that gets almost 100%, actually really just 100% positive favorables from the community. That's a rarity here in San Francisco, although I hear Eli, that we definitely need to expand the hours because our bladders don't run on a clock, and that need does not end in the nighttime. Although I'm glad to see that some of our pit stops are operating at longer hours. But I really am looking forward to expanding this program. I think we've been able to demonstrate its success in District 6 in the South of Market and the Tenderloin. I think all of our neighborhoods could use this program, regardless of what the data is showcasing. I do think that we need a space like this in every single neighborhood. And like I said, while it is certainly a great resource for our residents who and our neighbors that live on our streets, or maybe for even some of our single room occupancy hotel residents that may not have the greatest bathrooms in their buildings, I know I've been able to use these restrooms. As someone who has always grown up in a city, I've always had a map of which public restrooms I knew were available in every single neighborhood. So which McDonald's, which Gap would let, which Starbucks you could use the bathrooms for. And I think many of us do. And I think it's so much better for many of our visitors, our tourists, our families, our farmers market vendors to have something that's provided by the city that you don't have to try to figure out which public restrooms will allow you to use it, whether you're a customer or not. It's just such a great service. And again, I want to thank Director Nuru. It's really been his leadership in getting this program off to a great start. I think the outcomes that have been demonstrated have been incredible. I want to thank the Controller's Office in Rec and Park for looking at many ways for us to expand this program, I think, in the most cost-effective way possible, taking advantage of existing resources. And I do want to thank, many of our community advocates who worked very closely with us in helping us bring this program to life. So I want to thank my colleagues, Supervisor Cohen and Wiener, and I really hope that we can have many in your districts as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim, would you like to file this item or continue it to the call of the chair?
I'm open to both. Supervisor Cohen, if you'd like to hear this item again as we move forward, we can. I'm also happy to file this item.
Okay, why don't we file it? Why don't you make a motion?
So I will make a motion to file this item.
All right, thank you. So motion made by Supervisor Kim to file this item, and without objection, this motion passes unanimously, without objection. Madam Clerk, is there any other items on the agenda for us today?
No, that concludes our business for today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap. Thank you.